Krishnan, the official number now is 137 dead, more than 5,000 injured, and more than 100 still missing, many of them buried in the rubble of the port behind me. I think it could be many more than 100. Nobody knows. Now, the government is saying that those responsible for this accident will be brought to book. But you know, this was an accident in the way that Chernobyl was an accident. It's not that there are one or two people who are responsible, but a whole system of corruption and negligence, which meant that nearly 2,000 tons of a dangerous explosive, confiscated cargo, could just sit in a warehouse behind me for 6 years. No safety measures, nobody decided what should be done with it, no one took responsibility. And that's why, as I discovered on the streets of Beirut today, people are so angry. It's not just the carcass of a port, but of a state, brought to ruin by the infighting, incompetence and corruption of its political leaders. A crowd confronted the Justice Minister today. This is humiliation, he shouts. All of you politicians knew what was in that port. She'd come to see the damage for herself and try to convince people that justice would be done.
What answer can you give the people?
I'm telling them only one thing regarding the investigation. I want the truth and the full truth. And if there is an obstacle to the truth, I will talk. I will not stay aside. I will talk. I will not accept that the investigation doesn't go to the full truth. This is my commitment as Minister of Justice.
But the people don't trust you.
The people don't trust. I understand the people because the people are fed up. The people are suffering. I understand the people.
People are absolutely furious with the Minister of Justice. They won't let her walk along the street. She may say that there's going to be an investigation, but people have no trust. They have no belief in this government. She's quite brave, actually, to come out here on this street and face the people. But they don't care about that. They just want this government gone. And then they shout, Thawra, Thawra, revolution. As she continues her tour of the damaged neighborhood of Gemezi, they throw water bottles to show their anger. So why are volunteers, not government workers, cleaning the streets? Where is the government? Where is the municipality?
That's what we're wondering, really. That's why we're here, just to help, because the government is not here to help us, so we're there for each other. We only have each other in this country. We don't have any more trust in this government or in the state.
So what about the international aid that's coming in? How should that be distributed?
To the Red Cross, to the people that are over here, and to the revolution. And absolutely none to the government and none to the account that they opened to help the Lebanese people, because we don't trust them with anybody's money. And I think if any money reaches them, we are not going to see any of it. They'll just put it straight into their pockets like they've done everything else.
When President Macron of France toured the area today, he heard the same message. Don't give money to our government, she shouts. And he replied quietly, I know. Earlier, he'd been to see the mound of spoilt grain that was blasted out of the silo at the port. Another emblem of humiliation, of a people who feel their government hasn't just let them down, but betrayed the country. Now, President Macron has said that there will be an international pledging conference in the next few days. But that's difficult because governments pledge money usually to other governments. And he has said there must be change here, there must be reform. He understands that it isn't just a question of giving money to the government to deal with this issue. They're talking about $15 billion worth of damage. And, you know, you can come back to the atomic disaster in Chernobyl again. That is what opened many people's eyes to the rottenness at the heart of the Soviet system. Some people I've been speaking to say that's what needs to happen here, a complete change. But this is a land of fiefdoms and dynasties. How do you bring change here? That's what no one knows.
Lindsey, Hilsum. Well, joining me now from Beirut is Mustafa Allouche, who is a member of Future Movement, a political movement led by the former Prime Minister Saad Hariri, and also from Beirut, Aya Majzoub, a researcher at Human Rights Watch, who have today called for an independent investigation of the Beirut blast. Aya Majzoub, how can the whole political class be rotten? How can they all be to blame?
The investigation that happened today is emblematic of not just one error, it's emblematic of a system of corruption that the Lebanese politicians have profited off for decades. The political class has not been accountable for any of the abuses against its population for the last several years. Instead, they have been complicit in wiping out the savings of the Lebanese public, in damaging the environment of the Lebanese public, in bankrupting the state. The list goes on. So this is an accident that was bound to happen, given the incompetence and negligence bordering on the criminal of the political class that has been in power for decades.
Mustafa Allouche, you've been an insider and an outsider in this political class. Do you agree?
Well, I agree that our system, the whole system, is corrupt. And unfortunately, it's not only a corruption of the politician, but it's a bilateral corruption that some of the residents and citizens are part of, because when they benefit from this corruption, they would praise the leader, and these leaders are not. We are in a good democratic system, so we have elections, and these people are elected by a good part of the population. And in fact, the mercantilism is not only from the part of the politicians who are corrupt, definitely, but it's just part of the population who benefited from this corruption for years and years because of the corrupt system itself, the sectarian system that has given parts of power to sectarian leaders, and every citizen feels that he has to be part of the system, or otherwise he wouldn't benefit from anything.
Well, then how can you be part of a movement that seeks to put the same old politicians back in power from the same old family who have been part of this system that has gone so wrong? Why are you propping it up?
Well, we were trying as, let's say, some new generation of politicians who were trying at least to change the system, to even dismantle the whole, the old system. However, I should say that in my 4 years in the parliament, it was very clear that the whole system is rooted in the population, in the sectarian feelings, because many of the population, as I said, I can say 50 or even more, they are bound to be part of the system as part of being subjects to the political leaders and to the sectarian leaders.
Okay, Aya Majzoub, you're shaking your head throughout that answer. Why?
I think it's incredibly misleading to claim that the majority or even half of the Lebanese population has profited off of this corrupt system. I mean, yes, there were some individuals who were profiting from the corruption, but they were a very limited circle of individuals around the major political parties. The reality for the majority of the people is that they have been driven into poverty. Even before the coronavirus pandemic and even before this explosion, the World Bank warned that more than 50% of Lebanon's population was going to fall below the poverty line this year. Some economists have claimed after the coronavirus pandemic that that number could rise to 80%. That's 80% of Lebanon's population living in poverty. That's not the majority of the population profiting from this corrupt system.
But when people shout revolution in the streets, what does that really mean? And how risky is that? I mean, revolution doesn't always bring what you want.
Of course, but it does show that people are not happy with the way that things are going, that people are opposed to the regime. On October 17 and the revolution after that, you had millions of people going down to the street to say enough, to say we don't want this sectarian system anymore, to say that we are not with the system, we're not benefiting from it. All we've gotten from the system is poverty and hardship and pollution and lack of education and lack of access to healthcare.
And Mr. Allouche, what do you think is at stake here in terms of the country's next descent? You know, how bad can things get?
Well, let me go back to what I heard, because definitely a lot of populist talk is being around for a long time. And many of those who are saying that they are not part of the system, we have to investigate more. I'm living with people every day, and I know that at least half of the population, even those who came down in the streets, have benefited a way or another from the mercantilic system. What happened now is the whole system has crumbled down, and it's no more functioning. This is why we are seeing a big percentage. I don't have numbers or exact numbers, but definitely the vast majority of the middle class is becoming close to the poor. And this thing will deteriorate more and more.